Hello, IVA families. It is July 8th when we're recording this, and this is the second part of our video. If you missed our first part, we are trying to present to our families what we're imagining as we move towards reopening this fall. Again, I am Principal Jackie Bryant, and I'm not really going to be speaking a lot in this video because Kathy Simpson, our math teacher of 6th grade and 7th grade, and Carrie Noble, our math teacher for 8th grade algebra and 7th grade and other classes, they have really worked out the details of this model. So they're going to be explaining the models to you. Mr. Burns and I are going to be here thinking both as practitioners at the school as we're listening to them explain it, but also as parents, what questions maybe we're not addressing. We do expect that this video is a little bit longer because we want anybody who's interested to see all of the models that are considered and the pros and cons of those models. Again, everything that we do at the school is a practice of intellectual character, and it's a really intentional practice in community. So when there is decision making, we don't make decisions and just tell you what the decision is. We invite you to understand all of the constraints, everything that we've considered, and then provide us with feedback. Your feedback is going to be essential in helping us refine the model and find a solution in this fall that works the best for our students' learning, for our teachers, and especially for our families.
And wait, can I add something to that
yes,
slide?
please do.
The way that we're presenting this information is much like how we ask your children to present information in math class. So those of you who are incoming 6th graders, we do a lot of these math projects called POWs, where students have to explain all the steps of their thinking in writing. And so as a practice, we are doing that as well. So we tell your students, like, tell us all your ideas, even if it started out as a not so great idea, and show us the progress that you made in your thinking. And that way we as teachers can see your growth and your progress. And so that's what we're trying to do here. The next series of slides is going to be like a flow chart, flowing one from the next, from one to the next, showing our thinking, like what we started with, what our first constraint was, what our next step was, and then another constraint. So we're going to be going through our thinking just like we ask your students to do in math class.
Thank you so much, Ms. Noble. I really love that. So settle in, get ready, and I'll move us to the first slide, which was one of our very first questions.
So one of the first things that we wanted to consider was, how do we maximize the in-class time for students, but within the safety constraints that we've been told we have to follow? So we know that we can only have 13 students per classroom, and as a result, the school cannot have a regular full-day model that still services all students. We don't have the space for it. So given what the CDE is requiring as far as a total amount of hours for in-person, independent learning, online learning, we first thought of this split attendance model, just knowing that physical constraint. Students can be on campus half of the days while completing work on the other half of the days where they cannot be on campus because the other students would need to come to school.
And I just want to add that the very first part of imagining these models is some of the work that Ms. Noble and Ms. Bassetti, our intervention coordinator, did in measuring the rooms and figuring out exactly how many chairs can go and desks can go in each room for that spacing. So 13 students is not just some number that we made up. It was how would you describe it, Ms. Noble? It's like a math.
It was a mathematical choice.
Mathematical result. Okay.
Okay, so within those physical boundaries, we also wanted to consider, how can students receive rigorous curriculum and personalized learning support for both the in-person and the online portions of whatever we come up with. So we were thinking about students being there for a full week, because that sounds the most like regular school, and that would create this off week. So kind of this like alternating situation. And then we thought, okay, well, if students are coming to school for one full week, seeing their teachers, having it more regular, and then having to also be online for that off week, teachers are going to need time to create that online content on those off weeks. And so one of the first things that was kind of a preference that we also came up with was having that independent Monday and then the collaboration on Tuesday through Friday with teachers or the online learning. So just considering how we are sort of doubling our work, making that in-class material, but also transferring that to be an online curriculum as well. So that leads us to our first model.
And we want to do the in-learning and online with excellence. We want to do both of them well. So this was the first model. Go ahead.
So the first model we came up with was this kind of 1 week on, 1 week off, with Mondays off so teachers could create that rigorous online material for the students that were at home. Because if teachers are teaching in person Tuesday through Friday, they're not going to have that opportunity during those days to create rigorous online material. So this model would mean your kids are in school Tuesday through Friday every other week. The schedule would look something like this. You can see in this schedule, Monday is no school teacher prep. That would also be when we do our professional development and all that stuff. You can see that Group A, if you follow the dark blue, Group A is one group of students. They come to school Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and they take their 6 classes. The school day would end at 1:10, so that lunches could be taken to go, because eating lunch on campus adds another element of safety concerns. And then teachers would have this little sliver of time in the afternoon to kind of check in with those kids that are online that week. And then the following week it would flip-flop. The other group would be in school, and the first group would be at home. So that is where we started, a 1 week on, 1 week off model, with kind of minimal time for teachers to interact with the kids that are at home, because they're really focusing on their attention to the kids that are on campus.
So some of the benefits that are there is that this was the most in-person instructional time, and there were a lot more cons to that. Ms. Noble, would you say what was sort of like the largest concern of this model?
Our biggest concern as teachers for this model, having gone through the spring with the students, is that the kids that were at home, we would lose momentum with them. That if the longer they're away from us with minimal checking in, it might just feel like they're on vacation for a week, and we would kind of lose momentum. So we kind of moved beyond this every other week idea to more like an every other day, or at least having the opportunity to see every kid every week, like at least sometime during each week, so that we didn't lose that momentum in the off weeks.
And I would add to that, there were students who would normally do really well in school, love learning, have no issues spending hours doing work, but they told us that they had a real lack of motivation, that they felt really distanced, that the Zoom-only interactions was really difficult for them, but then all that independent work was also really difficult for them. So we want to try to avoid that.
So the next thing that we really considered was, how do we ensure that students are held accountable, they're still motivated, and they're receiving teacher support? Because as I believe Ms. Noble mentioned in going through the model, the alternating model, teachers are in class for most of those days. So when the students are at home, there's no time to hold Zoom meetings, really. There might be that sliver of time at the end of the day, but that's not going to be a lot to help keep students motivated. So we kind of were thinking about, okay, well, even with the Mondays off for content creation, we still want to support any of the groups that are online, even though we're in school with the other groups. So we came up with shortening the day because it allows for more support and flexibility with supporting all groups of students every week the best we can. So enters the half-day learning model.
Yeah, so this model is much like your AM kindergarten model, where students come to school in the morning before lunch. And like Ms. Simpson mentioned, we kind of want to shorten the day. So like in the first model, the every other week, like we're holding hands strongly with the kids that are in the classroom, but we're kind of letting go of the kids that are at home. This model allows us to kind of hold both their hands a little more evenly. So like every day we are in touch with both groups of students. That's kind of the benefit of the half day, is to keep that continuity with both groups of the students. So this would mean your students attend 2 days every week. So they're either coming like Tuesday, Thursday, or Wednesday, Friday, or they could be coming Tuesday, Wednesday, and the other group comes Thursday, Friday. These are options that we're still considering. You can see here on this schedule, again, the dark blue is all one group. So you can see this is the consecutive schedule. So in this example, group A would come Tuesday and Wednesday and have all of their classes. And then on Thursday and Friday, group A would be online, and vice versa for group B. It could be Tuesday they come, Wednesday they're home, Thursday they come, Friday they're home. Either of those options are things that we're considering. Notice that the 6th graders start at 8 in the morning and end at 11. 7th graders start just 20 minutes later, 8:20, and end at 11:20, and 8th graders start at 8:40 and end at 11:40. Ending before lunch is a good safety precaution, because eating lunch has its whole other collection of issues with it during this time as far as contamination. The pros to this is that we have that increased accountability, like we're seeing students every day, either in person or online. The cons to this, one of the big cons is that there are 9 groups of students on campus, because we have 9 classes. So there's 9 groups, 9 bubbles of 13 kids on campus. We have 8 classrooms and the blacktop. So with our 8 classrooms in the blacktop and 9 groups of kids, every space is filled at all times, which means when those PE kids are done and need to go to a classroom, the kids in those classrooms have to move. So because all 9 groups are on campus, every space needs to be used all the time. Kids have to move from room to room. That brings with it this issue of cleaning the rooms between movement. So like when one class moves to another classroom, those rooms would have to be completely sanitized. So that's the biggest con to this. In this model, the afternoons are times to check in for teachers to check in with kids at home. So that's a pro. But the con is that everybody's kind of crammed into the morning, and there's a lot of cleaning that would need to happen.
Thank you. And I know, Mr. Burns, that you're there and watching this. So do you have any thoughts or questions that are coming up at this point in this model?
I do. I just think that the 9 bubbles thing is something that really makes a big difference. So like if we can limit the movement of students, then we're also speaking to how viruses could be contained. And I think that's the primary thing for this model, is we want to keep kids as safe as possible, as well as our staff and the parents and the people that are in the community that will be surrounded by these kids.
I also want to add that lunch to go just seems like the clearest option, but we have a large amount of time to figure out what is the best way to do this. And so I think like everything that we're presenting is what we know of at this point and how we can implement it. And there's a lot of details that will go into this, and we'll continue. Again, we appreciate your feedback. So I'll turn us to the next slide.
So this thought of having all 9 bubbles on campus at the same time, this movement, this cleanliness, there's a lot of possible errors that could be made. So we were considering, how do we avoid overloading our resources while maximizing the safety measures for everybody? So kind of reducing those exposures and reducing that movement to keep everyone safe. So given that if we have 9 bubbles at the same time, we're at this new full capacity, we thought about spreading students out across the day. So spreading out attendance. Not only would that allow for more gaps between arrivals and departures, so we have to do that required temperature check in the morning. It allows more time. Students aren't going to get clogged up as much. It also kind of relieves some pressure on the room. So like if a PE class needs to come in, they can go to one of those available rooms instead of having to switch out with someone who's already in their bubble with their class safe. You know, they're not having to interact in any way. So we came up with this half-day staggered learning model that would use our resources and our full day more effectively. And you'll see why in just a minute from Ms. Noble.
And before we go to that, I also want to add that as we worked through these models, we realized, oh my goodness, at some point, students are going to need to use the same desks that other students used. And so one of the things that we're trying to understand is, what's the cleaning look like? I mean, we do have guidelines on that, but what's the student participation in cleaning? What is student responsibility? I know that as a school, we'll be ensuring that students are doing hand washing and sanitizing, keeping their masks on, but what other new sort of roles will students have when they're stepping into a space that another student is also going to use? That's just a side comment. Now for the option 3.
All right, so this is our final option, the one that you saw hopefully in the first video. All we did in this one is kind of stagger those the hours of arrival further. Again, it could be alternating days, that your child could come to school Tuesday, Thursday, or they could come to school Tuesday, Wednesday. That's still something that we're talking about. Teachers would be in the classroom 4 days a week. Okay,
teachers and students, just not
and students, just
school.
Yeah, half the students. So here's kind of what it looks like spread out this way. You can see the 6th grade in green. They would come from 8:20 to 11:40. The 7th graders would come a whole block into the day. So they would start a whole hour later at 9:30 to 12:40. And then the 8th graders wouldn't start till after lunch. So it'd be like a PM half day from 12:10 to 3:30. And as Ms. Simpson so clearly said, this really maximizes our use of space. Why would we cram all these classes into the morning when we have the whole school day to work with? We might as well spread some of these out for safety reasons. This schedule means that the maximum number of groups of students or bubbles on campus is 6. Now, like I mentioned, we have 8 classrooms. So that means those 6 bubbles can go to a classroom and stay there for their whole learning day. Also, having just 6, I mean, that means no cleaning. Like, they don't have to leave and go to a different room and we have to scrub down the whole room. Also, with only 6 bubbles on campus, we're still planning on taking your kids outside for a break, and they have to pass each other in the hall. Just having fewer groups of students on campus makes all of those important times for students safer, because our campus is just less full. It has 1/3 instead of half. So those are the pros here, and that's why we kind of landed here, because it gives us kind of the best of both worlds. We've got time in class for students every week. Teachers, you can see, have time to do online support. If you see all those words where it says online support, all those blocks are free for teachers to be connecting via Zoom with the kids that are at home that day. So in this model, your child has access to their teacher 4 days a week. Half the time they're in person and half the time they're at home.
I think one of my favorite parts about that model, one of the most powerful pieces, is that there's an opportunity for flexibility to see every student every single day. So you keep that momentum going as a teacher, and you keep the students' momentum going. If they have any questions, then they don't feel like, oh, I just have to do this on my own. They have the access to their teacher right there.
Mm-hmm. And can I add a little something too about that? Would you mind flipping back?
Oh, yes.
Right, thank you. The online support chunks, I guess we could call them chunks, we're able to have like an hour of Zoom with those students who are at home. So it's not like we're just having to check in. We could actually have sessions between the other classes that we're teaching. So if I'm teaching 2 6th grade classes in the morning, I can support the other home 2 6th grade classes in the afternoon. So it just kind of gives like more ability to meet those students for longer periods of time as well.
Yeah, which is meeting our priorities of having personalized education that's rigorous and supportive. So this is an overview of the model that is right now our best working model.
So this is what we've landed on, and of course we're going to hear more details from LBUSD in the coming weeks, and we are flexible and going to adjust. But we wanted to get something out so that you can see that we're thinking about it and see what our thought process is.
And this video is limited. It's not telling you everything. It is trying to give you as much transparency as we can in our decision-making process, but it's not addressing things like how will we do advisory? What does this mean? That it's not a final decision. So when you think of when you need to get your kids to school and what transportation is going to look like, what their siblings are doing, all of these are continued details that will be given to our families as we figure out the details, especially after your feedback. And with LBUSD, we do have a lot of our kids, our siblings who are in LBUSD schools. So we want to make sure that we have a model that is easily collaborative with an LBUSD model. We really want to allow families to not feel a strain from what we are doing. And this model doesn't tell you the details that are in the CDE guide. If there is any case of COVID out on the campus, there is a requirement that we would go into quarantine. And so there's this whole school decision tree that is an image in that document. There's a lot of details and plans in the background that schools are prepared for and receiving more information every day. It is really important. I'll let everybody give sort of a final word. This is our final word, but it's really important that we have our families take the survey and let us know what are the other details that are really on your mind, and that if you had more information about them would help you be able to envision what the fall will look like for your family. Anything else from you guys?
I would just want to reiterate how much we understand that it's important for families to be able to feel as connected and safe and prepared for what's going to happen in the fall. Because, you know, I also have 2 children that are in LBUSD, and I want to make sure that all of these things work well for my family. So I feel the same thing that you parents are going to want to feel for your families.
And so we're continuing to look at more information. We're getting the family preferences from the survey. We're keeping an ear out for what Long Beach Unified is doing, especially because Long Beach Unified, as our authorizer, is we're a school of the district only for purposes of special education. So all the special education support services come from Long Beach Unified, and we want to make sure that it works really well with the model that we've created for our students. And we are hopeful that there will be changes that make it easier to stay connected, and we're going to be keeping an eye out. So to conclude our video, if you've stuck through this whole time, thank you. Take the survey, send us your comments and feedback, what other details you want to know. Take care and stay safe, and we really hope to see you soon. Goodbye from Miss Bryant.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
All right, so we're ending our recording now.